So when we got started, my intention was, like many other pastors, to try to get something out pretty frequently. But you know what? That's easier said than done. And so here we are at the end of yet another week, trying to figure out how to live in this new reality that we're in at the moment. And so I did want to send something your way. As we head into Palm Sunday, we're walking into the most unfamiliar Holy Week that many of us have ever known. But maybe that unfamiliarity is something we need to stick with. I do want to remind everybody, I am asking if you can send me your palm pictures, or something that you've colored or something that you have gathered. Show me your palms, and we'll share them in our Palm Sunday worship on Sunday morning. Remember, I need them by noon tomorrow, noon on Saturday, and I would love to incorporate them in some way. Remember that during Holy Week, we will have the opportunity for folks to hear the Holy Week readings and experience them as we share them in this format that we've been offering to you via our website and Facebook. But there's also the opportunity, if you'd like, to Zoom in to a presentation from the Moravian Church Without Walls. The link is included in either this email or this Facebook post, and I hope you will take advantage of it. Either way, you will be experiencing the Holy Week Readings Manual in a Reader's Theater format. Both of which sort of originated from me and are getting used in these different places. And we hope that you will find a way to experience Holy Week through them. Now I want to invite us into Psalm 130. Out of the depths, I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplication. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, Lord, who could stand? But there is forgiveness with you, so that you may be revered. I wait for the Lord. My soul waits. And in his word, I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch and wait for the morning, more than those who watch for the morning. O Israel, hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is steadfast love, and with him is great power to redeem. It is he who will redeem Israel from all its iniquities. as we've been walking through this journey. I know for me, 3 weeks ago was when I entered the unfamiliar. When did it hit for you? 3 Fridays ago, my child came home from school with a just-in-case packet of schoolwork for about a week's worth of work. Just in case we don't have school on Monday. His teachers had spent time helping to prepare the children on Thursday and Friday for what might happen. That they might not come back after the weekend. They had already experienced a week when their school programs after school had ceased. They had stopped eating lunch in the school cafeteria, opting instead to keep them in the classrooms with that daily group that they had to be around. 3 Saturdays ago, we scrambled to get up and going and to get to the church and meet with Jonathan for us to put together and record a worship service. That first one took a while, as we had to figure everything out for the first time in this new way of doing things. 2 Fridays ago, life still had the taste of something familiar to it. Miles had alternated spending the first 3 days of the week with his grandmother's, while David and I started to make the transition toward this working from home reality that we needed to shift toward. By Thursday and Friday, we had a taste of what e-learning and a classroom day transferred to home were going to look like. And it included Miles and I sitting down to create a weekly assignment checklist. Something to keep it all organized with 3 different teachers all giving their piece of the puzzle of the daily work. It also meant another series of recording sessions on Friday and Saturday to make a worship service offering for the weekend possible. Trying to write and prep while supervising schoolwork at home and in the sanctuary. Miles had to take an online test that day. 1 week ago, I had spent most of Thursday and Friday recording as much of the music for worship throughout April as I could, with a small group of our band members out on God's acre and in the sanctuary with Jonathan. I put requests for some pieces out to Adam and Elizabeth, and Jonathan and I started strategizing what he could record from home. And in the midst of all of that recording of music for 12 hours between those 2 days, we tried to figure out how to mesh the decisions made on Wednesday night by the joint board, anticipating the shelter-in-place order, with the reality of it, as we anticipated Governor Cooper's action over the weekend. Maybe it's only been in this last week for you where it's begun to feel like life has shifted. Maybe your shift started even before mine did, out of precaution. But no matter when your shift happened, I'm sure it's underway at this point. This shift into the unfamiliar, where we are all finding ourselves grieving something in the midst of this. There has been anger. Why are you taking this away? There's been denial. But this doesn't mean us. We can still meet, right? We are essential, aren't we? In some ways, yes. Yes, we are. But that's part of what makes it so important for us to set an example of taking this time and setting aside, taking the steps to help everyone understand that this was about protecting and preserving public health, not just taking care of you or me, but setting ways in motion of being that would help to take care of everyone. There has been confusion. When can we meet again? Well, truth is, we aren't sure. We'll update you based on what we know later this month. But I don't have an answer for what happens after April 30th right now, other than that schools won't resume until May the 15th. If they do then. But all of those are only symptoms. The source of those symptoms is the sense of grief that we feel in this time for the familiar, for traditions, for smells and sounds and sights of what we know so well from years of practice. The appointed time is upon us, but we can't and really shouldn't do things the usual way. And so there is grief that makes us irritable and fearful, grief that makes it easy to lose our tempers or not take the time to think through the whys for the decisions that have had to be made. In a call with my mom last Thursday or Friday, I really can't remember which, they've all begun to blend together for me. She asked, well, we can still drive up and put the flowers out in Mayodan, right? Mom, shelter in place means drive to the nearby grocery store or the pharmacy or make a medical appointment or the post office. If you can. But pretty sure it doesn't include getting in the car and driving an hour away to another community, getting together and spending that time together even from two different households. Remember, we're celebrating Miles's birthday over a video chat tomorrow, not in person, for this very same reason. It's not an extended vacation. It's trying to protect each other. And that's a hard concept because it seems like we should be together if we're really trying to protect each other. So this is, again, such a strange place to live. Just like many of you, this is a week that I know how to do when we can do it together. Daily gatherings, carving out time for that annual drive to the God's Acre in Mayodan with jugs of water and cleanser and scrub brushes. My mother answering Miles's questions about his great-grandparents while he scrubs and I supervise, since she can't navigate off of the sidewalk with that uneven terrain. Collectively, we are navigating the most unfamiliar of terrain. Your grief is real and reasonable, but recognize it for what it is. Cry out to God for comfort in the midst of it. Hear the echoes of the disciples as they ask Jesus not to return to Judea when he journeys to raise Lazarus, or as they begin to realize what is unfolding when he enters Jerusalem. They don't want the unfamiliar any more than any of us do right now. But as familiar as our Easter traditions are to us, can we hear the invitation of God's unfamiliar and always surprising ways, calling us into this Easter moment? What might we learn about ourselves in an Easter time that invites reflection instead of the furious activity of doing? What kind of joy might we discover simply by being present to the new life that's all around us, proclaiming God's good news? God is still with us in the midst of this, right there with us in this Easter too. The star shines in the belfry at the church, and the bells will still ring out come Sunday morning. And we will still name those with whom we share our resurrection hope, those who've found their home in God in the last year, our celebration looks and sounds completely different this time around. But our proclamation of hope in the midst of grief remains. The Lord is risen, even as we find ourselves wandering and waiting to understand the unfamiliar landscape of our grief and seek to move beyond it. Remember that we worship a God of hope, a God who is with us when nothing makes sense. And God will be with us on the other side of whatever it becomes. Let us trust and come together in the ways that we can. Voices over phone lines, surprises on doorsteps. Do what you can, and let that be enough. Give whatever's left over to God.